this government's cabinet is the first cabinet to actively been vetted by members from both sides of the political divide. William Ruto is not a petty president, unlike Uhuru Kenyatta. Mm-hmm. William Ruto is a believer in democracy, unlike Uhuru Kenyatta. William Ruto would never get to where Uhuru Kenyatta got us as a political unit to, then Jubilee.
How do you deal with, and I'm assuming that you get advances from ladies?
I'm telling them, I love them all.
Okay.
They're all beautiful ladies in this country.
I, Kimani Ichung'wa, having been elected a member of the National Assembly, do swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will bear true faith.
Tuko family, how are you doing? My name is Kingori Wangeshi, and as I always say, when you see Kingori in a suit, it's about to get lit. It's a political conversation that we will have with the Member of Parliament for Kikuyu constituency. He's also the majority leader of the National Assembly, Mheshimiwa Kimani Ichung'wa. Let's have it right here with him on Tuko Siasa. Mheshimiwa.
Yes, Kingori.
Hujambo?
Sijambo.
Karibu sana kwa Tuko Siasa.
Karibu nivae tai kama yako. Leo.
Talking of ties, since the inauguration of this new government, I've never seen you in any other color except yellow.
No, I was in a green tie on Tuesday or Wednesday.
But most of the time it's yellow.
Yeah, you know we had changed our wardrobes in the run-up to the campaigns.
Yes.
To a lot of yellow. So I just find myself with very many yellow ties.
Yes.
And very few red ones. I donated them to our old friends in Jubilee,
yes.
The red ones.
Yes. Yellow is equally good on you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And as we anticipated, congratulations.
Thank you.
On your re-election. This is the third time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unopposed again?
Well, I was opposed this time.
Yes, but you got it.
Easily.
And you became the Member of Parliament and then appointed as, is it elected? Elected as the leader of majority. Mm. How do you balance those two roles? Because one requires you to keep the MPs in line and you still have, you're needed in the constituency.
Mm. Well, it's not so difficult. I think I'm fortunate because my constituency is not very far from here. So I am able, for instance, on Mondays when I'm not in the house, I'll probably come here in the morning, and in the afternoon I'll be in the constituency because there's no house in the afternoon.
Yes.
Tuesday mornings, again, there's no sitting early in the morning until about 11 when we come to sit for house business. So I have the morning that I can do my own other issues at the constituency level, or any other personal business that I may have. Then the whole of Tuesday afternoon, the whole of Wednesday and Thursday, I find myself stuck in this office, between this office and the chamber. Actually, my life is basically here, the chamber, and back home.
Yes.
Fridays, again, and the weekends, I will now use that again to be in the constituency, to attend to my bosses. That's where my bosses reside.
And you've done a very good job for them, that they've given you the mantle the third time. What this office that you hold, the leader of majority, is a coveted office, isn't it?
Well, it could be.
What does it come with? The challenges, responsibilities, and some privileges?
Well, the privileges, you can see there's a big office.
So
there's a very big office, as you can see. It's also a leadership office that is constitutional. It's an office that is anchored in our constitution, both the leader of majority and minority. Therefore, it's not a small office, being a constitutional office, and comes with very heavy responsibilities as the person leading basically government business on the floor of the House. And of course, making sure that our team remains cohesive, those of us in the majority, to ensure that we push through our legislative agenda, the government's legislative agenda on the floor of the House. You also have to keep abreast with what is happening in all committees of the House, because that's where the actual legislation happens. So when we begin the actual legislative work, because right now this session has basically been more settling down and getting things in place, getting committees, set up of committees. That's what has kept us very busy. Now all our committees are fully constituted, and the government is now also about to get fully constituted with the hope for approval of principal secretaries this afternoon. And government will start processing bills that will be processed then through committees. I have to keep abreast with what is happening in each of the committees to make sure that it's well aligned to our agenda, and we also deliver on the agenda that we sold to the Kenyan people as a Kenya Kwanza team.
So physically, does this office serve equally as your Member of Parliament office, or you have now the MP office?
No. I have, in actual fact, this office, I can't get time to see constituents in this office at all. This office basically is there to serve members of Parliament, parliamentary staff, of course, because there's a lot of liaison with parliamentary staff, clerks from the clerk's office, the speaker's office, and also the secretariats to various departmental committees, and also members of the executive cabinet, secretaries, principal secretaries will patronize this office to be able to push through whatever agenda they want to process through Parliament. Therefore, I hardly have time to see constituents in this office. The office also will occasionally be used to host diplomats and other delegations of other governments, visitors visiting Parliament. Therefore, it's not an office that I can ask constituents in Kikuyu to come and line up out here. I have a constituency office in Kikuyu that over the last 10 or so years I have patronized almost every Monday, except with the disruption that came with COVID-19 in 2020. And I do intend to continue patronizing my constituency office and patronizing my other many offices that are dotted across villages in Kikuyu constituency. I actually spend more time in the villages than in the office. Our work hardly has anything to do with sitting in an office at the constituency level. It's going out, and I prefer to do that. I prefer to go and meet the people in their localities. And I do that every Monday and Friday. And of course, Saturdays, Sundays, I also spend time with them.
The people they punish most, Honorable Speaker, it's not me and you who can afford bundles. It is millions of young Kenyans who are using these bundles to explore the internet and even work online, Honorable Speaker. And we are punishing them, yet they have no jobs, and the little jobs they can do over the internet, they are now being punished by these internet service providers.
So this, you push the government agenda. Which is it that now you are pushing as a government, the legislative agenda of the Kenya Kwanza government?
Well, the agenda is quite huge. I'll not get into details, and I think over time you will see the bills that will be processed in Parliament. Already you saw yesterday we did finalize with the approval of the passage of the regulations on the Hustler Fund to allow the setup of the Hustler Fund. And now that is duly done, and the President launched that yesterday. It would have been possible for him to do that before the approval or disapproval of those regulations. And when they came to Parliament, they were committed to committee. The Committee on Delegated Legislation, they brought their report the day before. We debated and passed it yesterday, just before the President launched the Hustler Fund. That's done with. There's expected to be legislation around the issues to do with housing, because housing is a big agenda. There will definitely be legislation on investments and privatization. I think you've heard the President and the government speak about issues to do with privatization and how we remodel our economy to do a lot more projects using the PPP model, the public-private partnership model. So there will be a bit of legislation coming into the House in relation to that. Agriculture will be a big item in our manifesto. Was a big, and it still is a big item in our manifesto, so there will be legislation around the areas to do with agriculture, the ease of doing business. You heard yesterday the President speak on the startups bill that had come in the Senate as a private member's motion, and which is already directed the relevant ministry to take it up as a government bill. Healthcare, I think on matters to do with UHC, there could also be legislative agenda that will come around that area. That's why I said as soon as government gets rolling, when ministers and PSs are in place, they will be able to process all those bills and bring before the House for onward processing.
And you promise that we will not have chaotic scenes that we had in the previous Parliament in passing of this agenda?
Well, you can never anticipate debate. But if you listen to me, even at the time we had the contracted debate on the leadership of the House in terms of which coalition would be the majority and which one would be in the minority, I did appeal to all members of Parliament across the board, members of the 13th Parliament, to ensure we don't take this House to what it became of the House in the 12th Parliament, which I served in. And I'd also served in the 11th Parliament, but I think the 12th Parliament degenerated in a very bad way to not a house of debate, became a house of acrimony, shouting, and everybody yelling at each other, nobody listening to each other. And I've continuously continued to appeal to all our MPs to treat each other with some decorum. And I'm happy because I've also had the leader of minority speak to the same. And I do hope that increasingly we will take back the dignity of the House to where it ought to be a house of debate, where members sit and listen to each other. We never need, we never have to agree on everything. And if I don't agree with you, I just need to give you your limited time to say what you have to say. And I'll have my time to say what I also want to say, to counter what you are saying, but not shouting at each other and trying to shout each other down. We should never let the House degenerate to the levels that it degenerated to in the 12th Parliament. But again, I think it was largely informed by the regime that was there then. People who never believed in consensus building, people who never believed in consulting each other. We do believe in consensus building, and we'll try as much as possible to build consensus around issues so that there isn't a lot of acrimony.
I would like to discuss that more. Did that have to do with the change of leadership? Because that is not how the 12th Parliament began. It started well, but along the way, the assembly leadership was changed, and then it became a different thing. Did that reflect on the leadership?
Yes, it had everything, and that's why I said it had a lot to do with the last regime. We had a regime that believed it is either their way or the highway. And even the change in leadership then was unprocedural, unconstitutional, irregular. And because they believe that's the way to do things, and I'm sorry to say, but it began from the office of the president then. So it's President Uhuru that led to the degeneration of Parliament, what it became. And he probably felt Parliament is an appendix of the executive, and will work through fiat and directives from him. And that's how we got where we were. It's also unfortunate that because of the same shenanigans you saw with around the handshake, then we were left without an opposition per se, or a minority side that would stand up and speak on behalf of the people and to give contra views to what the executive wanted. When the opposition went into bed with those who were in government then we degenerated to what became of us. You remember, it's a few of us then that transformed ourselves into some sort of opposition within government.
It was a peculiar position.
And I believe that's how the Yellow Movement began. So I do not envisage the same happening again. We have a president now who believes in being held accountable. He wants to have a vibrant opposition that we hold government to account. And that's why we keep encouraging them. Don't just shout in the House. Have your say. Come appear in the House, articulate issues on behalf of the people. If you have anything you are critical on that government is doing, you have all the time, and that's why people have elected you to come and articulate their issues. Those that you agree with government, again, don't oppose for the sake of opposing. Speak to it. Even if you don't, to be very kind to government, you can just speak and say the idea is good, probably being pushed by people I don't like. But again, what you think you have a better idea on, that's the whole essence of a democracy. Government will come with its own ideas, and it's not just for members of the opposition, even for us in the majority. at times things will come from the executive that we may not necessarily agree on, and we seek to improve on them. But you don't improve by fighting or acrimony. You engage and build consensus and get the best thing that we can get for the people of Kenya.
All right. You've just said that the previous administration believed that Parliament was an appendix of the executive. So how independent is the Parliament that you now lead, the House that you lead as a leader of majority? You just approved the cabinet for the president. There were issues that were raised from the opposing side. They said that you just passed without real issues being discussed. How independent is the 13th Parliament?
Maybe just to inform you, Kingori, since 2013, the first cabinet to be vetted under the new constitution. If you remember, in 2013 and 2017, the minority never actively participated in the vetting of cabinet secretaries. This government's cabinet is the first cabinet to actively be vetted by members from both sides of the political divide.
And that was your doing by forming that committee. I remember you submitting the names of the committee.
We formed, I will not take credit for all of it because the minority also submitted their names. But I was saying that to give you the background of the independence of Parliament.
Okay.
Because unlike in 2017 where we vetted cabinet secretaries as members of the Jubilee party then, this time it was a committee that was had membership from Azimio and from Kenya Kwanza. And therefore the vetting was done without any undue influence from anybody. Remember, I sat in the committee on appointments, and I sat there and vetted, and I saw many Kenyans even questioning, is Kimani Ichung'wa really there representing government? And in fact, there's a friend of mine who asked me that, what side are you on? I told him I'm on the side of vetting, on the side of Parliament, because I sat in that committee as a member of Parliament. And I do my work as a member of Parliament for Kikuyu constituency, not even as the majority leader in the committee.
Okay.
As much as I sat there by virtue also of being the leader of majority. But I have to do my work objectively and with an independent mind. I just want to draw your attention to number 23 on the sources of income. You have indicated the Communications Authority of Kenya gross salary of 25.4 million. Is that an annual 2-year income? Because there is something that says 2-year income there.
Yes, just above it says 2-year, because we are told to list all income received during the calendar year preceding your nomination and in the current calendar year.
Not a single minute or at any point did the president pick up his phone to ask me, why are you asking difficult questions to my CSS? In fact, he was very happy that we were asking the difficult questions. And he kept encouraging us. Ask all the difficult questions, because people must know when you are getting a job, you are getting a job to come and serve the people. And the people vetting you are the people's representatives. And I think the president is very clear on that. He has no intentions of micromanaging Parliament. He has no intentions of directing Parliament on what to do. But that doesn't mean that we will not work with the president and his government to make sure that what is good for this country at the end of the day sails through Parliament. And we are there as responsible leaders to make sure that that happens.
All right. So what can you say? That was well explained, the independence part. Because for sure there were those who are asking, is Kimani Ichung'wa really the leader of majority? He's the one who is asking
all the difficult questions.
Yes, to the contestants or to the candidates.
Because we want to get the best out of our cabinet secretaries. And if we don't ask them difficult questions, then Kenyans will be left in doubt as to whether the process is really an objective process. And remember, the same committee recommended the disapproval of one cabinet secretary. And we were all in that committee. But the House disagreed with us. And again, that tells you how independent the House is. That even a committee's report will appear and the House could disagree without any undue influence from anybody.
You have done so much in Kikuyu constituency, we might not get out all of it, but highlight some of the achievements that you are proud of from your constituency.
Well, is it in order to blow your own horn? I think the people of Kikuyu know better. They know where we have come from. They know we had no roads in Kikuyu constituency. We had only one tarmac road, other than the highways that cross through our constituency, the Waiyaki Highway, the Northern Corridor going to Nakuru, the Southern Bypass. The only other small tarmac road we used to have that was halfway done was the Gikambura-Thogoto-Mutarakwa road that had since been relegated to a dirt road, but is now fully tarmac, the 29 kilometers to the Limuru side. We have other roads that have since been, and I don't want to get into details of all the roads, I could count on and on and on, and many others are still in the works to be tarmacked, upgraded to bitumen standard. But for me, I ask for the people of Kikuyu to vote for me on the basis of one agenda that I told them will be my agenda number 1, my agenda number 2, and my agenda number 3, education. And I am very proud today that what we have been able to achieve in terms of being able to uplift not just our education standards in terms of infrastructure, that today our schools are better than many private schools or public schools. I experienced post-COVID, very many parents moved their students from private academies into public schools. We are now having to increase the number of classrooms across the constituency because a lot of parents who had moved their children to private academies are moving them back to public schools for 2 reasons. That infrastructure is much better in our public schools. 2, the level of the education standards are better. Kikuyu has consistently been number 1 in Kiambu County in public schools performance, both at primary and secondary school level. There's still a lot that needs to be done. There's still a number of schools, and I pay particular attention to the performance of schools, school by school, almost to class by class. I am very keen on that because I was clear in my mind that if we do not uplift the level of our education standards in the constituency, we may develop infrastructure, do very good roads and all that, but at one point in time we will be strangers in our own constituency, and I've continuously made it clear to our people. When you have a population that is well educated and well appraised of issues, they will know how to take advantage of opportunities that come their way. And it was very clear to me that because of our very close proximity to Nairobi, we must start building a repository of people who are well educated and knowledgeable, people who will be able to take advantage of opportunities that are abound around them. And knowing that it's only well-educated people who do that, I laid great emphasis on education, and I'm glad that it is paying off. As I said, we are not yet there. We have been able to do what we have been able to do in the last 10 years. I want to believe in the next 5 years we'll be able to do even more. We have done this through CDF amidst the challenges that have been there with NGCDF, and also going beyond NGCDF, going out to seek for help from corporates to help with our schools and other community needs. We have gone out of our way to even set up an education foundation that caters basically for the most underprivileged people in the constituency to see them through school. And I'm glad so far we have over 200 students that are currently in school, courtesy of the Kikuyu Constituency Education Foundation, that offers full scholarships to our students, nothing to do with government funds, all money mobilized from friends of Kikuyu and my constituents, including school children. They do walks and fundraise to be able to get funds to educate those of us who are less privileged and who would otherwise not have accessed education. I'm particularly proud of one girl called Nosizi Dube, who I met when she was in class 6 at HGM Kino Primary, and today is a third-year student studying economics at the University of Nairobi. Wow. She is the first girl from the Shona community to ever access higher education in this country.
Actually, education is very well known to have gotten a lot of support in Kikuyu constituency, as well as your brother's constituency, Kiharu constituency. Now, the former president walked to KICC to preside over the removal of the then leader of majority. How would you handle that situation if President William Ruto walked into a meeting to preside your removal?
How would I react if President William Ruto did the same? President William Ruto would never do that. What President Uhuru Kenyatta did was illegal. And I said it was illegal, it was unconstitutional, it was unprocedural. The meeting at KICC was not a parliamentary group meeting.
What was it?
The standing orders, they are quite clear on how to remove a leader of majority. Due process was not followed. The PG there was a kangaroo court, a 5-minute kangaroo court presided over by President Uhuru Kenyatta. He will not, up to this day, produce minutes of that meeting. And if they were ever there, they were a forgery. There was no resolution in that meeting. He came and just gave a fiat directive. This is what we have decided. Who he decided with, up to this day, we do not know. Therefore, it was quite unprocedural and rather unfortunate, because Aden Duale had done very well and did very well, and we all have to work hard to do our work to the level that the Honorable Aden Duale did. Kimunya was a very pale shadow of what Aden Duale was as leader of majority. And it's unfortunate that President Uhuru Kenyatta, out of political pettiness, allowed himself to stoop to the level he stooped to, that he can walk into KICC to pretend to be presiding over the removal of Aden Duale. That is why many of us never recognized Amos Kimunya as the leader of majority. You remember I, on several occasions, said it in the House. He was not the leader of majority. He was the leader of the minority within the majority party. Aden Duale remained to be the leader of majority because he was leading the majority. Those that they derogatory, in a very derogatory manner, referred to us as Tanga, the Tanga group. They were UDA aligned. And since we are we were more than them in Jubilee then, Aden Duale continued, and we continued to recognize Aden Duale as our leader. And Kimunya then became the leader of the minority within the majority party. I think it's only Honorable John Badi now on the other side who was leading a majority within the minority. Therefore, I'll just be emphatic. William Ruto is not a petty president, unlike Uhuru Kenyatta. William Ruto is a believer in democracy, unlike Uhuru Kenyatta. William Ruto would never get to where Uhuru Kenyatta got us as a political unit to, then Jubilee. We are in UDA now under the leadership of President William Ruto. Having suffered the way he suffered under Uhuru Kenyatta, I do not think you would ever want to see any other leader go through the same in the history of this country.
Two last questions. Is there a plan to bring in an office of the official leader of opposition through the parliamentary route? Well,
I have seen it in the media. I don't know where it's come from. I'm told it's Azimio sponsored. Not a bad idea. Anybody has the potential of being a leader in this country, either as president or as leader of the official opposition. I am yet to see that proposal. I've just seen it in the media myself. So as at and when they bring it, if it has merit, we'll consider it on its own merits and demerits. But as of now, I have not seen anything.
All right.
I've just seen it in the media, in one of the newspapers, saying that they are toying with the idea. It probably would be a good thing to have it, to avoid seeing very senior leaders in this country addressing something they call Bunge la Mwananchi at Jivanji, and taking walks in many of our neighborhoods, trying to mobilize people just to have a forum to speak. But again, it has to come with responsibility.
Sure.
Offices come with responsibility. And therefore, when I say everybody has a potential of being in that position or that of the president, it's indeed true. And as a country, we need an opposition that is vibrant and responsible and play its role as an opposition to hold government to account.
Then why is it that the people in government do not really want to hear that voice as at now, that opposing voice?
No, Mzee has to tulia in one thing. We're not saying don't talk, don't criticize. But when you lead the opposition and what you want to do is to incite Kenyans to get back to the streets, to street battles, then that we have to tell you honestly, allow people time to work. Many of the issues that afflict Kenyans today are as a result of the doings of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga in the last 5 years. Therefore, the best he can do is to allow Kenyans and the government in place today time to correct their mess. This government is basically correcting the mess that became of Uhuru and Raila's leadership under the handshake regime. Therefore, when, for instance, because I think that's what you are referring to, a petition is filed by members of the public to the National Assembly for the removal of IEBC commissioners. Then you lead your brigade of members of parliament and lawyers to come and pretend to be defending the accused before the committee. Then you lead them in a walkout. Both the lawyers for those who are being petitioned against, you also lead your members of parliament to walk out of the committee. Then now you want to tell us that you want to have street demonstrations to force or to coerce the committee and parliament not to exercise their constitutional mandate. That's when we tell you tulia.
All right.
Tulia and allow due process to be followed. You have an opportunity when the committee finishes its work to have your members of parliament articulate whatever they want to articulate, even if it's in defense of the accused, on the floor of the House.
Right.
You do not need to go back to the public to incite the public. The public have nothing to do with the petitions and those who are being accused.
In the interest of time, because you have to go to the chambers, as you said, you shuttle between this office and the chambers. There's some quotas who are saying that with the President William Ruto at State House, it's like we are back in 2002 when President Kibaki took over power, or in 2008 when President Obama took over power in US. Do you share the same sentiments?
Yes, largely I do. Kenyans are quite optimistic, and I think you remember President Mwai Kibaki took over government in 2003 after close to 24 years of plunder of our economy by the KANU regime. President Obama took over power when the American economy had also really gone down. You remember the great recession that was there in the US. And therefore that is why many Kenyans feel that President Ruto is taking over power at a time when the economy had also been plundered under state capture for a good 5 years, unabetted plunder of our resources through state capture. And he's coming with a lot of optimism from Kenyans that he's the man to correct all those ills. And that's why we have continuously pleaded with Kenyans to be patient. We had a plan that we sold to the Kenyan people. And it wasn't the William Ruto or the Kenya Kwanza plan. We were just trustees on behalf of millions of Kenyans who we went out to across close to 44 counties in this country and listened to them in economic forums, and we just put together that plan based on what we heard from the people, on the issues that afflict them as a people in their different regions, and even propose solutions that came from the people. Therefore, this plan belongs to the Kenyan people. It doesn't belong to William Ruto, it doesn't belong to us as a majority party. And we are just conveyors or carriers of that plan that the Kenyan people want to see realized. And we are working hard to see to the realization of that plan. That was the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. And I want to believe it is that optimism that the Kenyan people have with William Ruto. And I think they've also seen the zeal and the determination he has to actualize that plan. Kenyans have been able to judge William Ruto as a cabinet secretary in charge of agriculture, as CS in charge of higher education. He is a man who has a track record even as deputy president, and therefore they have a lot of hope that with the same energy and zeal that he has always demonstrated as a public officer, he will be able to move this country forward. And I share in the optimism, and I want to encourage the president to keep on working hard. We are there to support him, and we will support him from the National Assembly and Parliament to ensure that we achieve this manifesto, not for anything else but to move this country to the next level and where it ought to be.
All right.
And of course, catch up on all the lost time of the last 5 years. That was basically a wasted time.
All right. You're very busy. When and how do you unwind? How do you spend time now off all the duties?
I unwind at the end of the day, every day. From here, I go straight home. I have children that I have to do homework with. So that helps me to unwind. You know, when you do something different from what you are accustomed to, it sort of becomes relaxing. I enjoy solving quadratic questions with my teenage daughter. And she's excited that her father can solve quadratic questions.
Yes.
And so when I get home and ask her, maths,
namna
gani? Others will be doing their civic studies. They will ask questions that I can help. So I unwind by spending time with my children, and the weekends also. I do a lot of exercises, so I exercise a lot to unwind. I also have personal things, errands. I have a small farm in Kikuyu. I spend a lot of time over the weekend. And of course, socializing with friends and constituents over the weekend.
How do you deal with, and I'm assuming that you get advances from ladies because of your looks and dimples. Nowadays they're talking about dimples. How do you deal with that?
Dealing with what?
With the, do you get advances from ladies?
I tell them I love them all.
Is that what you tell them, or that is what you're telling them now?
I'm telling them I love them all.
Okay.
They're all beautiful ladies in this country.
All right.
But I am a husband, and I think they all appreciate that I am a husband. I am a father, as I said, to 2 teenage girls and another 2 young ones. Therefore, they also understand that I am a father. Let them not harass me too much. My girls are teenagers now. They can read things on social media. So they will soon start feeling harassed, that their father is being harassed. So, but let them also enjoy themselves. I think we are all Kenyans and we love each other.
Yes.
So just tell them we love all of them.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. We now release you to go to the chambers. We appreciate your time, and we hope that we'll have some other sessions as you also explain government agenda here on Tuko Siasa and Tuko Audience.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is the time we had with the leader of majority and MP for Kikuyu constituency, Mheshimiwa Kimani Ichung'wa. Until next time, goodbye, subscribe. This is Tuko Siasa with me, Kimani Ichung'wa.